Hi there, and welcome to a bonus episode of my writing advice and inspiration podcast, OMAKASE. You may be wondering why today we're not having a regular episode, and you may be able to tell just from the way I'm speaking today, but I'm feeling a little strange. So would you mind indulging me in a bit of not an audio log per se, but let's say a living entry in the journal of my life? I'm feeling a little weird. Not in a bad way. I should clarify right off the start that I'm doing good, I'm doing great. I have been writing a lot. And of course, writing is full of surprises, and writing has surprised me. And that's what I want to talk about today. I don't know what the title of this is going to be. Probably the final chapter? That seems fitting. Although it also seems very ominous. I may have to think twice before making that the title. Either way, I am feeling a little different today. I keep reaching for the words. Wispy keeps coming to mind, but what does wispy even mean? What does wispy even mean? Siri, define wispy.
Wispy means of hair, threads, smoke, etc. Fine, feathery.
I mean, my hair sure looks feathery today. Who knows what words even mean? Who knows what words even mean? Wispy keeps coming to mind. Like strands of hair poking on end. I don't want to continue to reinforce a kind of stereotype about writers or creative types that creative people live in a sort of dreamlike state. I feel pretty dreamlike today, but it's not because I'm a writer. More often than not, I'm pretty awake. I've been pretty awake recently, waking up early, getting writing done, getting a lot of writing done. Strangely enough, finding myself coming back to my full writing speed, back to creating the crazy amounts of numbers that I knew back before my life took a kind of turn a couple years back. Nothing too bad, it's just, a few things happened here and there. Stuff that I had no control over. I'm sure you can relate to that. And I'm sure you can relate to this feeling as though I had come back to a good place. And a really good writing pace. And yesterday, as I was writing this novel, the novel that I talked about last time, I've been talking about it for a little bit. This novel, I was writing it, and the final chapter surprised me. Not only because it was a very touching scene, a kind of crescendo of emotion, but also because it arrived suddenly. I think I joked on Twitter about how the outline for this novel keeps coming back from the dead. It keeps crawling out of the trash can to give me one more, actually. But that did happen. I mean, the outline didn't actually crawl out of the trash can like some kind of zombie, piece of paper thing. But I did something that I guess happens way too often with me. But I found myself stopping. I wrote the final chapter. Or I wrote the end of that chapter. And I looked at it. And I looked at it. And I looked over my little notes of my outline that I had written the same day. Some of those notes had been with me for like weeks. I kept thinking, okay, this is going to happen. And days passed, and I thought, yep, this is going to happen. And I sat down that day, and I thought, yep, this is going to happen. And then when the time came, I realized it didn't. That scene that I had been thinking about didn't happen. Because the emotional culmination of the story happened in that chapter. And I found myself sitting there in my chair, looking at the computer screen, thinking, the outline says I should write this scene. And I'm a completionist kind of person. And I feel this conflict in me that is entirely in me. I can feel it now. It's in my gut. A kind of obsession, I guess. And a part of me still wonders if I should write it just to be sure. But that's on me. When I look at the story and I look at that conclusion, that's it. I realize that it's on me. And it's my obsession, my compulsion, my desire for the completion. The completionist in me that wants to write that scene. But I know that it wouldn't matter because the story's over. And it's hard to explain without giving examples. But I thought that these two chapters were going to go hand in hand. There was going to be a chapter where the three main characters would talk and they would learn something very important. I make it sound like it's a Saturday morning cartoon, but it really didn't unfold like that, and it really wasn't planned to be that. But in this chapter, they were meant to sit down and talk. And then something would happen, and they would square off against the threat together. And that conversation, that first chapter, turned out to be way more complex, way more involved, way more personal, way more heartbreaking than I originally thought, and way longer too. And when I finished that chapter, I looked over my outline, over that scene, over that inkling of an idea that I had, of a moment that maybe should possibly somehow maybe happen in the story, and I realized that it would be kind of disingenuous, kind of insincere to follow that dramatic climax of emotion where a person finally opens their heart, as though releasing the hatch, clicking the lock, and swinging open the gates of some prison. It really didn't fit anymore. And that's funny, isn't it? I sat there in front of that screen for way longer than it was necessary. Looking over it, looking over my notes, I had been establishing so many things. I had been preemptively preparing for that scene. Establishing things here and there. And I realize now, all that stuff is going to have to get edited. Because that scene is not happening anymore. It would be silly if after this dramatic moment, where all the pieces come together, where a kind of mystery is solved, if the three friends struggled against a literal final boss, it seems silly. Especially about a story that is not about fighting final bosses, but about opening one's heart. It's funny. It's silly. Writing is strange. And writing keeps surprising me. This is one of those things where the struggle is not that the writing is hard. The struggle came to me because I thought the story was going to be different. I mean, I thought this novel was going to be different from the start. This novel was supposed to be 16,000 words. Supposed to be a novella, a novelette, a tiny little thing. A little glance into this other reality, in this other world, and these two characters and their friendship. And that's not how things turned out to be at all. Those 16,000 words have become way more than that. Over 10 times that? It's funny. It's silly. And that's mostly the reason why I am in such a wispy mood. That word is not correct. But I can't help but describe it in any other way. Other descriptors are coming to mind, but they're all synonyms for being ghost-like, and as we all know, ghosts don't exist. So, what's another good... I guess I can't simply describe it in a word, in an adjective. So how about I describe it in a feeling? I write books for a living, I think I can do this. The feeling that I feel right now is not an aimlessness. I feel like I danced last night. And I danced a lot, and for a long time. And without me realizing it, the music stayed with me, lingering in me, even after the dancing stopped. And I came home, and I slept, and I woke, and even now, the day after, the music is still in me, and I can feel the swaying in my body. Da 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 da. The story has a rhythm to it, a voice to it. I've spent a long time inside of this character's head, writing from their point of view, speaking in their voice. So it is weird. And I think it's weird because I know that it's going to be over very soon. And I guess I'm becoming hyper aware to the reality that it's going to be over. There's a little bit left in this novel. I did write the final chapter, but there is an epilogue left. There's always an epilogue. As much as I would love to have the story end on that really, really, really good high note, there's stuff that still needs to get resolved. And I would hate to leave people hanging on quite a few little threads that I left open. So the epilogue will be written probably in a couple of days. By the time you listen to this, it will most likely be over. I think there is less than one writing session left in the novel. Probably not even that much. And it's funny. And the reason why it would have been... I keep coming back to insincere. And I guess it would have been insincere to do a regular podcast this week because I really don't feel like it. I would have had to put on a face. I have all these thoughts in me. I was writing last night. I was writing really late last night. It was one of those days where my schedule was flipped because my lovely spouse was working in the afternoon, so we spent all morning together. And as soon as she left for work, I sat down at the chair and started writing. And I wrote for a long time. And I made many a word. And it wasn't until like 9 p.m. that I wrapped up. It was around 9 p.m. that I realized, okay, that's it for today. There's the epilogue left, and that's it for this novel. And it's funny, because I thought I wasn't gonna have enough time before Fanime, the only convention that I go to every year. I thought I wasn't gonna have enough time, and now I have like a week and a half, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. What's that? Someone saying in the background, take a few days off? You are silly. You're a silly goose there, person in the background. I take days off every week. I no longer have crazy work weeks like I used to back in the day. My wife makes sure that I get a couple days off every week. I think I will most likely go back to another story. My wife and I were talking about this, because there's novels that I wrote by hand that need to be transcribed, and there are also a bunch of manuscripts that I typed up, some which are like super old, and I think I'm gonna go back to one. Mostly because I mentioned in passing, I'm like, I have this manuscript, and this manuscript, and this manuscript. And my wife said, ooh, I always wanted to read that story you wrote. And I was like, okay, that's the one. Okay. Alright. C9 is coming out. I'm going to go to that graveyard in my mind where old stories rest with shovel in hand. I'm going to disturb the earth, that tendermost soil, and I am going to dig out that story. The files are all I have saved. It's a story that I typed up back in the day. 30,000 words maybe? A novel? Really more like a novella in cases. Or it's probably going to get longer. I'm probably going to add a bunch to it. Max from like 4 years ago wrote it. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of equalizing. Even out the things that Max said and the things that I said now. This is a segue. Complete segue. Also, if you hear crinkling in the background, that is because my lovely cat is sitting next to me. But he would only sit next to me if there was a crinkle bag underneath him. And he sure loves crinkling that crinkle bag. So that's what those crinkles mean. I am sorry that I didn't give you guys a regular episode this week. I really don't have it in me. I really love making this podcast. It inspires me as much as it inspires you. But I'm in a weird mood today. And I know this mood. This is not new to me. This novel is almost over. It went long. The ending always goes long. And who knows, maybe it'll take me a day and a half to finish the epilogue. I doubt it. Because that would mean that the epilogue would be like 40 pages, which is silly. That's probably not gonna happen. You know me, that's probably not gonna happen. I feel like... Yes. I have got it. I have got it. I know exactly what this feeling is. I have decided. With laser-like focus, I know exactly what this feeling is. And I'm going to encapsulate it in a single description. I feel as though I have gone on a trip, on a vacation, a real vacation, a week-long vacation that began on Monday, and now I find myself on Saturday, and I know tomorrow I will need to pack and get ready to return to real life. But today, in my heart, is Saturday. And I have a little bit left of this vacation, and suddenly all the time that I thought I was going to have has been reduced, and all the things I thought I was going to do, some of them turned out and some of them didn't, and I'm getting that feeling, that sensation. I'm remembering the times back in Mexico when my family and I would go every summer right around this time, and we would go to a little beach town in Jalisco. or Nayarit. A tiny little beach town. 5-6 hours away. We didn't always do week-longs. Sometimes it was just the weekend. Friday was so exciting, and Saturday was too, but with an edge, because I knew that soon enough, before I knew it, we would be packing up again. I am recording this on a Tuesday, but in my heart, it is Saturday. There's a little bit of time left in this story, in this escape, in this vacation I have taken from the real world. Escaping for hours at a time as I sit before the computer, typing away, thinking, imagining, and giving form to words that are not mine. And isn't that what a book is? A vacation, a getaway, escape. I think so. I believe so. It is Saturday. And I realize that there isn't enough time to do all the things I wanted to do in this story. So today, on the day before we need to pack, and the vacation is over, I'm going to do all my favorite things in this story. I'm going to give a moment to every character. Let them speak. And let the reader know a little bit about them. About what happened to them. About where their lives went. Not so much a montage, but a quick little glance into their future. If anything, so that the reader knows long after they close the book that all of those characters they came in contact with, all of those characters who touched their hearts, they're going to be okay. It was a long journey, a hard one, sometimes scary. But everything, at the end, everything is going to be okay. And welcome to a bonus episode of my writing advice and inspiration podcast, OMAKASE. This was a little bit longer than I would have liked, but I hope that you had fun listening to me ramble on. Not quite rambling. A lot of speaking from the heart. I don't wish to give a lot of time to the people who don't think very highly of me. And I'm not saying I want people to think highly of me, but sometimes I get comments that imply I put on a kind of character for the show. And anyone who knows me, anyone who's watched my content for years, knows that that's not me. It takes so much work to pretend to be someone else, so I'm just me. And those of you who see my other content, especially the really, really silly stuff I do with my wife, then you know, it's me. This is me. Always me. When I'm talking about my stories, when I'm answering questions, when I'm talking about that show I watched, or that book I'm reading, or I'm screaming about how my wife just defeated me at that game again, or together in unison, my wife and I are shouting off the top of our lungs about an anime that is just absolutely badly written. That's me. It's always me. Writing a book takes a long time. And the longer it takes, the harder it is to part. But it's okay. I don't want you to feel as though you will feel a terrible heartbreak when the time comes. When this sensation arrives at your door, let it in. I don't think it's a bad thing. If anything, it shows that you cared, that you gave it your all. It pains you now because you loved, and you loved fully. I am going to miss this story soon. I am going to long to see it again, and I will. I'm gonna try to get back and revise it fully as soon as I can. But you know how this writing journey goes. The story is going to need time, and I am going to need to get away from it. Look somewhere else for a few weeks, maybe a month, so that my feelings can temper. So that these hard emotions have time to cool down. And I can look at the story with new eyes and seek to make it the best that it can possibly be. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for putting up with my silly ramblings. I am in a very introspective mood today. I can assure you that has nothing to do with the ending of this novel. That's sarcasm. This novel was totally about introspection. You have characters literally asking, what do you see when you look at yourself in the mirror? And that is so good! It's the kind of things that come back from the beginning of the novel, and I'm like, oh. And I realize, maybe I am good at this. Hey, I'm kidding. I'm being silly. But it just goes to show that no matter how long you work on this, how long you write novels, it's still hard, The process is difficult, and we're continuously surprised by our characters, their voices, their struggles against the unknown, and many more things. Hey guys, the name has been Max, also known as Kieran. I hope that you had a lovely time listening. Or if anything, I hope that I was good company during your ride to work, the time you're spending folding your laundry, walking your cat, washing the dishes, or just laying in bed, relaxing after a day's hard work. I hope that wherever you are, you're having a lovely day. And that when you sit down to write, you find the words and keep going. Okay? Okay. I am going to take a second and give a shout out to every single lovely person who is supporting me through coffee.com/mkaren and patreon.com/mkaren. Beginning with the people of coffee. Links to all this stuff is in the description. I usually like to give a whole, explanation about how you can support me, but it doesn't feel very genuine to do it for this podcast. Especially because it's a lot of me it's me doing a diary entry before the microphone, really. I hope that you enjoyed this glance into my mind and my process. Here are the lovely people supporting me through coffee.com/mkaren. Das Danya, Lishadra, Angela, Kristen Lofton, Sylvia Leitilla, Polly Craftual, Thank you, guys. And, oh no, I wasn't ready. Oh, the page is not loading. Patreon, you had one job. Patreon, you had one job. Oh, wouldn't it be funny if today is the day of the month where Patreon just breaks? That's a joke. Patreon breaks many days during the month. There you go. It's alive again. Is it? There it is. And now for the lovely people supporting me through patreon.com/amkaren, Rival Moonlight, Soulmuse, Lacey, Irina Phoenix, A. Howard, Elisa Dudley, Heather is Writing, Nicola, Brenda, Amelia, Pat Eichson, oh, there's the crinkles, Mike Yanto, my son, my lovely cat son. I gave him that crinkle bag so that he could sit on it and it would crinkle and he would be happy. And I find out that he has moved it aside. He has moved the crinkle bag over to the side. He is laying next to me, like a good boy, and he's turned into what I can only describe as a cat shaped like a cinnamon roll, or a cinnamon roll shaped like a cat. And the crinkle bag is off to the side, abandoned, forgotten. Please tell me your guys heard that. He's like, stop looking at me. Let me sleep. Human, why do you keep talking? You're talking to yourself in the room again. Oh, he's happy. He loves it when I talk to myself in the room, right in front of the mic. Where was I? Pat Eichson, Melanie Ashford, Shido Tsubasa, Alex Cast, Alistair Baywood, Caitlin, Blarg, Kamishore Rao Shaluri, Kathy Lindsay, Kaylee, Mary Foster Smith, Juan Nunes, Caitlin. In case you're wondering why I did the very close Caitlin, it's because I actually have a microphone stand now. I know I'm a professional, quotation fingers, professional blogger, podcaster, and now I finally have a microphone stand. So I can do the thing where I can lean in. It's very comfy, it's very nice. It's like a weird mechanical arm thing. Maybe that's why the podcast is sounding a little bit better since the last couple episodes. Asterisk. Y'all let me know. The problem with podcast production... Oh, here we go. Let's completely forget about the whole, doing shoutouts thing. The thing about podcast production, and this is something that... oh yeah, time to name drop a celebrity. Something I learned from my mutual on Twitter, Ben Prunty, renowned video game composer, is that the unfortunate thing about creating content on the internet, particularly music that goes up on streaming sites such as Spotify, is that people don't listen at the highest quality. And he expressed a bit ago a kind of, not despair, but a sadness at the fact that even though he is creating stuff intended to be listened at the highest quality possible, most people, per the stats available for anyone to see, listen to music at the lowest quality available. Because of bandwidth, because they're listening on their phones, or because of many other things. And I find myself worrying about that a lot. I don't think the quality of the audio in this podcast is amazing. I think it sounds way better than it did at the beginning, but I don't think it's amazing. And even now, I'm recording it at really high quality. I have a microphone stand, I have a pop screen, I do all these things with the audio to make it sound better, and it's still gonna get exported so that the final file is like 40 megabytes. It's one of those things where what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I worry a lot about the sound quality of this show. But what are you gonna do? Where was I? Welcome back to Max Just Rants about things that are completely unrelated to the show. That's not true. I think the audio quality of the show is perfectly relatable to the show itself. Also, what did Patreon change this week? Patreon. Ugh. I know. Okay, what if I do this? What if I stretch the window? No, that doesn't fix it? Okay. Patreon changed something where people's names are getting cropped. Thankfully, I know where all of your names are. Kameshwar Rao Shaluri, Kathy Lindsay, Kaylee, Mary Foster Smith, Juan Nunes, Raquel Fernandez, Janosch Heybotsky, Sky D. White, Renee Solia, Connor, Jay Sawicki, Rhiannon August, Nicolay, J. Tana Kirkwood, James, Erasos, Noam Sahar, Novels and Tomes, Kiel, Lier Killo, Clem Pastor, Nicole Grissom, Biting the Sun, Christiane, Shimmert Hales, Amanda Stevens, Zero Woods, K.M. Anderson, and Alexel Hoshi. Hey guys. I completely forgot about doing shoutouts for this podcast. I completely forgot. I'm not kidding. I'm not being silly. I actually completely forgot about... Excuse me? My computer is acting up, which is scary because I've been recording this podcast. Okay, my computer is acting up. But that's not terrifying at all. You know, not because I've been recording this podcast and I would hate to have to shoot it again. For anyone wondering, there will be a regular episode next week, unless I'm like emotionally devastated by the end of this novel. I don't think there will be an episode the week after that. Mostly because Fanimicon is going to happen, and I am just going to be too busy to have anything come up. I would love to make 2 episodes in advance, but you gotta realize that what you're asking me is to have 2 episodes of the podcast be made in the same amount of time, which is not possible. So we'll see what happens. Follow me on Twitter. I'll probably yell about it over there. And I also make silly posts every single day. Anyhow, shameless plugs out of the way. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for tagging along. Writing is scary. Because it's hard. Because we often don't know where we're gonna end up when we put pen to paper. I thought this story was going to be one way, and I thought it was going to end in a particular fashion, and yet here we are. Time, once again, has made a fool of me. But that's okay. The journey now, as I see it on the page, is better, more exciting, more heartbreaking, and more inspiring than anything I could have manufactured on my own. It is the magic of this, of storytelling, of the characters taking over, and the story itself taking shape. This is fun, and this is all part of the process. And I cannot wait to sit down again, pen the final words of this novel, and soon, someday soon, return to this world and experience it once again.